In the previous part, we looked at how to implement visibility modifiers, minimap pings, and minimap icons for calling attention to points of interest or specific units in your quest. In this part, we're going to look at creating NPC dialogue. So first thing we need is an NPC. I'm going to go to neutral passive, and I'm going to choose a Dark Ranger. We're going to modify our quest so that instead of discovering the quest immediately or after an automated delay, we will discover the quest after we have spoken to this Dark Ranger and they've told us about it. So in order to speak to the Dark Ranger, there are a few things we need to set up. First of all, this isn't strictly necessary, but it's a convention in a lot of RPG-style maps. I'm going to add a little floating exclamation mark above her head. So in order to make that happen, we're going to go to our trigger editor and we're going to add this to our initialization trigger. We are going to add this right at the start because we're going to change around some of this stuff with the delay. So we'll add right at the start a special effect. We're going to create a special effect attached to the unit, and conveniently, the default values here are exactly what we're looking for. So first we have the attachment point, which is just a string. These strings are basically baked into the model files, so different models might have different strings. Just about every vanilla Warcraft 3 model file has an overhead attachment. There might be some exceptions, but that's kind of beyond the scope of this tutorial. And then we're going to select our unit, so I'm just going to choose this Dark Ranger. And the model file, if we go to our choose model here, you can see in the preview window on the left, by default it is the exclamation mark, which is called TalkToMe.model. And that's exactly what we want, so we're just going to use that. So we create this special effect. As with any object that we're creating, we need a variable for this so we can destroy it or manipulate it later. So we're going to go to our variables list and create a new special effect. We're just going to call this TalkToMe. Going to duplicate one of these set variable actions and choose the variable, last created special effect. Now that we have that, we're going to create a region here so that we can have a trigger to actually talk to the ranger. Now, I was previously talking about the concern of player doing objectives out of order, going around the region. So I'm going to use a Tripwire style region, which just means I'm going to make it go all the way across the pathable area. So ignoring the fact that the spec is open, there is no way for the player to miss this trigger. So we're going to give this a name. We'll call it Ranger Talk. And we're going to create a trigger that will make use of it. First, we're going to actually look at our initialization trigger. And remember I said I wanted the quest to be discovered after we talk to the NPC instead of just after this delay. I'm just going to go through and disable all of these functions for discovering the quest and doing these minimap pings and everything. I'm not deleting them because I want to be able to come back and reference them again later if I need to, but I'm disabling them for now. So we're going to create a new trigger. We'll call it Ranger Talk. Our event is going to be the paladin entering that region. So just like the go to the place trigger, it's going to be a unit, enters region. We're going to select Ranger Talk. The condition is going to be that that unit must be equal to the paladin. So unit comparison, triggering unit equal to paladin. And then let's do our actions. First of all, like with these other ones, we don't want it to repeat. So we're going to create a turn off this trigger action. And then we're going to receive a transmission from this unit that is a voice line and subtitles, or optionally just subtitles, which is what it's going to be in this case, because I don't have a voice line for this. So we're going to go to the cinematic category for a new action, and we have two choices here. We have transmission from unit and transmission from unit type. Transmission from unit will be a voice line coming from a specific unit. So we could say transmission from this exact ranger right here. Transmission from unit type is not going to emanate from a specific unit on the map. It will just display from a type of unit who doesn't actually exist on the map. It's just a disembodied voice, so you can use it for a narrator or for a ghost that you don't actually see, that kind of thing. So we're going back to our trigger editor. We've got transmission from unit. So we have a handful of arguments here. First of all, who sees it? All players is fine. Which unit is this coming from? We're going to select our Dark Ranger, because that's the person who's speaking. And then we have their name. This is not necessarily the same as the name of the unit. This is just whatever name is going to display in the subtitles. So in this case, instead of just calling her Dark Ranger, we're going to use her actual name. Of course, it's going to pick a random name from the pool of Dark Ranger names when the map starts. So we're going to use a function to actually get her name. So we'll go in here, and instead of just typing a string in here, we're going to go to function, and we will select hero proper name, and then proper name of what hero? We'll select, again, that Dark Ranger. So now, whatever name it randomly chooses for the Dark Ranger at the start of the map, it's going to look at that name and put that in for the subtitles. We have a choice of what sound file we want to play. In this case, I don't have one recorded, so no sound. And then we get the actual text of the message. Greetings, Paladin. I have a quest for you. I'll put it in your journal. Nice and simple. And now we have modified duration. So whatever sound file we put in, let's say we put a voice line which is about 10 seconds long. If we want the subtitles to display for 15 seconds instead of 10, then we would say add 5 seconds. Or we could make it shorter. We could subtract 5 seconds so the voice line plays for 10 seconds, but we only see the subtitles for 5 seconds. Or we can set to an absolute amount. So we can set it to exactly how many. So if we want it to play for 15 seconds, we would put in 15 or whatever. You'll see this note here, the duration of no sound is 5 seconds. So the default values there, which was add 0, means that the subtitles will show for 5 seconds. And then we have wait or don't wait. Basically, if we include wait, then it will not continue the actions of the trigger until after this sound and subtitles have finished playing. Otherwise, don't wait. It'll just continue through the actions while the subtitles and sound are playing. In this case, we're just going to leave it at the default of 5 seconds, and we're going to wait. And then once we have had this dialogue, we're going to do all of our quest discovery stuff. So I'm going to go back to initialization, and I'm going to select all of these things. So mark the main quest as discovered, display the quest discovered message, and we're going to create this visibility modifier. We're going to create the icon and set its variable. So I'm going to cut all of these things and paste them in here, and then I'm going to mark them as enabled, which looks like you can only do that one at a time. There we go. And you'll notice that I skipped out on this ping minimap thing. I'm going to change this so that when we start the map, it's going to ping the position of the Dark Ranger. So I'm leaving it in the initialization, and we're going to enable that and change the position to position of Dark Ranger. So now the map will start. We will have an undiscovered quest, and we're going to see a minimap ping pointing us towards this Dark Ranger, and when we come up to them, we'll see that they have this special effect above them, the exclamation mark. And then when we approach, we get the transmission from them, and then our quest is discovered. We get our other visibility modifiers enabled. I almost forgot. We need to get rid of that exclamation point once we talk to the ranger. So I'm going to add that in here real quick. We're going to add a new action. Special effect. We're going to destroy the TalkToMe effect. All right, let's fire this up and have a look at how this works in-game. All right, so after our short delay, you can see that the minimap pings the location of the Dark Ranger. We're going to look at our quest journal and see that it's undiscovered currently. You can see, kind of obscured by the health bar, but you can see that exclamation point floating above her head. And this is Clea Deathstrider, so we should see that same name in the subtitles when we approach.
As you wish.
So there you go, you saw the exclamation point disappeared, and we have the subtitles with that name. And you may have also noticed that it showed her portrait while she was talking. And now our quest is discovered, and the rest of this will proceed exactly as it did before. You can see our visibility modifier was added at the moment that the quest was discovered, as was our minimap icon. So the rest of this will play out exactly the same as it did before.
Defending your name.
There we go. So that's just about everything to create a basic quest. In the next part, we're going to look at a example of all of this put together into a finished map and see how it looks in-game.